So, what are the critical skills and tools needed to become a good web designer? Becoming a good web designer requires a combination of creativity as well as the right tools, even with the core skills that we're going to be learning. I want to share with you some critical skills that you need, whether you're coding or not coding, to develop a website. Now, the thing about web design is usually when you see the front end or you see the finished work, except they tell you, you might not know what has gone at the back end, if the person actually wrote the codes himself or herself, or just designed. So the most important thing is the work in front is good and it has a solid back end structure. One of the key skills is design skills. You need to have a good understanding of design structure and principles such as color theory, typography, layout, composition, alignment. You should be able to create designs that are visually appealing and user friendly and responsive. It will help a lot. Now, I'm not saying you should go and learn Corel Draw or Photoshop, but simple things like how to design on Canva might help. If you have a Canva account, if you check your Canva account, you see lessons on how to design there, and those can find it helpful to understand some basic concepts of design. Another critical skill is HTML and CSS. I already mentioned this in our introduction. You need to have a good understanding of this. HTML is the foundation of any website. And CSS is basically used to style and format the HTML element. So knowing how to code in HTML and CSS is essential for designing a website from scratch or choosing a template. So HTML is more like this is a boy. Now CSS comes and makes the boy more conspicuous. It's the one that makes it bold. It's the one that makes it justified or aligned. Those are CSS things. HTML is just the text or the image, like just what it is. CSS comes and gives that style and format to it. So those three things are key, and we're going to be looking at them later. You also need to understand some graphic tools. This is not compulsory for this class, but tools, especially like Figma and Sketch. Canva too can also be good because you Canva comes very handy than these other ones that are more complex. You can use it to edit your images, your logo, resize them, create elements, and other graphical things. Now, you also need to have an understanding of responsive design. Your design will have to adapt to different screens like smartphones, tablets, and desktop. So you need to understand what responsive design is, and we're going to be seeing that as we're doing the practical. You also need to have a user experience skill. User experience design is basically creating a positive user experience for website visitors. So a good website designer needs to be able to design websites that are easy to navigate, visually appealing, and user friendly. So if your design is too noisy, then it might distract people and they might just go out. They might bounce off fast, right? So you want to have something that is easy to navigate. You also need to be familiar with popular CMS platforms like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla. They're the popular ones. But in this course, I'm going to be teaching you WordPress. Wix is not a content management system, it's a website builder. Canva is also a website builder, not a content management system. Content management system allow you to create and manage your website without having to write a line of code. True, but it also gives you access to be able to modify some codes if you want to. While on Wix and Canva, you have nothing to do with codes at all. You nothing at all. You don't have any interaction with code. For this program or for this course, we're going to be looking at WordPress. Then we also have communication skills. A good web designer needs to be able to communicate effectively, not just with your team member, but with clients. Clients might not understand the whole technical word, so you need to be able to understand their needs and communicate to them in the time that they will understand, provide feedback, as well as guide them in making decisions because they might not understand sometimes what you're saying. You also need project management skills because you're going to be working with clients. You need to put timelines, you need to track your projects, and you need to manage deadlines. Now, these are core skills for someone who doesn't know how to code that is designing your website. However, there is more if you have coding skills. Maybe you've done a front end or back end, or you're a full stack web developer, then you should be looking at proficiency in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are the core programming languages for front end development. So if you're learning how to code, if you want to be a web developer that knows how to code and you're focusing on front end, you need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In fact, for programming languages, most people encourage make sure you know HTML and CSS. Every other thing you can build upon it, right? Then you need to know the web design software. We've talked about this previously: the Photoshop, the Figma, and the Sketch. The Sketch will help you, especially with creating wireframe designs. Then this is very critical. Whether you know how to code or not, you need to pay attention to details. Web design involves so many small details that can make a difference in the overall quality of a website. So you need to have an eye for details. You need to be able to spot and fix an issue before it becomes a problem. You need to sit down and concentrate and look at this thing and know this is where the problem is. Now, beyond all of these skills, creativity is very important. You must be able to come up with fresh and innovative ideas. What if you do not see a template that you like? What if you see a template for construction? How do you tweak it to be used for a website for a restaurant? Your creativity is what comes in. Your creativity will determine how far you're able to and how well you're able to customize a website. So in wrapping this up, as a good web designer, you need to have a combination of both design skills, coding knowledge, even if it's a bit of it, graphic design tools. You need to also understand responsive design, user experience design, as well as some popular CMS platform. Then most importantly, you should be able to communicate what you're doing with your team as well as with clients, and you need to be able to manage projects so everyone is carried along and they don't feel lost. Thank you.